Looking for the perfect hidden gem for your next night out? Welcome to Almost on the Lake, where the food is delicious. The service is top-notch. And the atmosphere feels like home. Family-owned and locally loved. Come see why everyone is talking about Almost on the Lake.
Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Oh my, can you believe what just happened?
Yes, actually,
yes.
I can.
Greg Galifianakis, how are you, sir?
Great, how are you today,
That
Carl?
is how you say it, Galifianakis. It's Greek,
You know,
right? Greek?
It is Greek. It took me 12 years to learn how to pronounce the name. Or, excuse me, 12 years to pronounce it and another 12 to spell it.
Really?
Yes.
How long were you in the special class?
Well, I'm still in the special classes, Carl. I have
That's
never
good.
escaped the special classes.
I like that. I like that, Greg. That's fantastic. Well, folks, what you may or may not know, how would you know? We're doing our second take now because something exciting happened, right? We were in such a roll, had so much energy going that it shorted out something. Laughter to me now is more important than it ever has been before.
Absolutely.
And you know, since the subject we're getting ready to talk about started in my life and yours a little bit earlier, laughter has been the thing that I've sought out more than everything else. Steve Kreitz and I are pals, and he's always called, you want to go see this show, that show, the other show, because he supports theater and has for many years. He's if it weren't for him, Benton Hall wouldn't be there. You know, he and some of his friends are in the early days, so they saved the old school building, and now it's a community theater that just does wonderful work.
Yes, it does.
And we love that. I told him one day, he called, he said, "Hey, Steve, Carl, what's going on?" I said, "I got to see funny stuff." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I've been looking for funny movies." So I go, on YouTube, and I go on Netflix, and I go on Amazon, and, type in funny movies. And I like some of the new funny movies, but they don't make you gut laugh, It's and so then you go back in time and you watch those, and that's where I would go. But since I have been on the funny journey of laughter, right? Of laughter, I run into people who are organic laughter factors.
Laughter factor 7, Carl.
And then when we met recently, real recently, for mutual friends, Richard and Angela over at the Wilkes County Hardware Store, I don't know that there has been too many minutes when we've been talking that there wasn't either laughter itself or a little precursor to laughter, right? Like it's coming. It is. And then there it is. So We met at the Wilkes County Hardware.
we did.
Richard and Angela said, there was a horn. There was a horn blowing outside. I first think, well, somebody's hit somebody in the intersection, and there something's gone wrong, and I said, Richard, we check out. He said, oh, I know what that is. and then you come walking through the door after a few more honking horn sounds, and there you appear, and I still, it took me a few minutes to put it all together, that you were out there blowing the horn because someone had your assigned parking spot, right?
Part of that is I like to pretend to be upset that someone has dared park in my parking spot, which really is selfish on my part. But the real reason I honk is to disturb Richard as much as possible. It's like trying to disturb a grizzly in its den. I call Richard a grizzly bear. He's friendly, but you don't want to anger him, especially around lunch or dinner.
That's right. That would be it. You've known Richard and Angela a long time, then, haven't you?
Yes, we have. And I will say this. To the most special human beings that I've met, it's rare to meet people that care so deeply about the community, about the people in that community, and also the special love that Richard and Angie and Benjamin had for my dad. And it was very profound to have friendship like that, Carl.
There's a rocking chair there with your dad's name on it in memory of.
Yeah.
Right?
And I still don't sit in it. I refuse to sit in it. That's Dad's chair, and so I'll sit next to it. But a great, great human being also.
That's wonderful. Well, we'll get into that story. We'll start off with, I guess, the reason that the table decor is as it is today. There's big reasons for this fresh vegetables there.
Oh, yeah.
And what you got there? These are sprouts. I grew these sprouts, right?
They look phenomenal.
They are phenomenal. These are radish sprouts. Yes. I also grow broccoli sprouts and a few other sprouts. And broccoli, of course, is supposed to be, I eat broccoli every day now, but the broccoli sprouts have, like, you can get, this many broccoli sprouts, and it has the same effect of 5 pounds of broccoli.
Yes.
And I've been, I usually eat 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds a day of actual broccoli. I steam it, saute it, do all sorts of things to it. And there's a reason, and we'll get into those reasons, that my diet has changed dramatically since the end of last year. And so that's that on the sprouts. Yeah. So you and I met at the hardware store. Very pleasant, engaging conversation. I mean, all sorts of things.
Yes.
But there was so much laughter, which, of course, is a prerequisite for my daily living now. There has to be laughter.
Yes.
And toward the end of our visit, your visit, and I just happened to be there. That was an organic experience.
Yes, it was.
People came and went, and it was just the way it is at the hardware store, right? Everybody seems to go to the hardware store.
Yes, they do.
Wilkes County Hardware, there they are. And toward the end of our visit, or when I was there and you were there, Richard said, you and Greg have something in common. And I was like, do you mean? And he said, yes. So neither one of us had to say what we were talking about, but we both knew.
And what's funny is I didn't know. So when you came up, because when I approached you, or right before I was leaving, you're like, I think you and I may need to talk because Richard says we share something in common. Well,
that's right.
I had no idea what that could be because Richard could say there's a host of things that we could have in common. And so I just apologized to you. I was like, Carl, I'm sorry. Whatever it is that we share in common, I'm sorry.
Well, clearly we have, Richard knows I'm on the laughter train, now. And I'm seeking laughter every day in abundance amounts because it's supposed to be good for us.
And it is.
So it's
good
really
for you.
healthy for us. And so I didn't really know either. It could have been because you said things that made me laugh. It made everybody laugh. Maybe you even laughed at your laughter.
Well, I
So-
don't know if that's good or bad, but
well, it could be mental or physical. Maybe it's just the universe doing its thing through
that's
you.
true. Maybe that's true.
I guess we better talk about the thing we have in common, because and that leads. I've always liked laughter. I've always loved a good story. I loved a good clean joke, and that's always, it makes you smile and
Yes,
feel
it
good
does.
inside, right? But the thing that you and I have in common is a journey that for me started last November, officially. My annual physical with my primary was in July, and the blood work, when it came in, she called, said just stop by or something. And so I did, and my PSA level was like 8 point something, so it was pretty darn high, So
and that's prostate specific antigen, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. PSA. I mean, there are public service announcements, but
Well, I guess
and
maybe
we
in
do.
a way that was one.
That's basically what we're doing now. This is the longest 30-second spot you've ever seen in your life. So the universe knew I was looking for more laughter, and there you showed up, and anyway, things have a reason for being, don't they?
I agree.
So my journey with prostate cancer started in November of last year, and there was a test done, biopsy. Did a biopsy, and my scores came back. I did not know how the scoring system worked, so I was all 9s and 10s.
Scoring.
And it's up to 10, it's like 1 to 10. And I was hitting 9s and 10s. I'm like, I'm doing pretty good. I get an A, right? I'm okay. A-okay. So, damn, it don't work that way.
Not in this case.
No, in that case, it was, oh my gosh. So anyway, he said, well, we need to look, closer. There's a problem in town, and sure enough, there was. And through the course of a month or so, I was diagnosed with stage 4-1 advanced prostate cancer. And immediately, of course, and I had after the PSA announcement from the good doctor, I was like, well, Google. And then I found everything under the sun, and then I found every home remedy, and then I was like, okay, Google to this university, that university, the other university, and I knew some smart people in smart places, so I called them, and I said, there's been some great advancements. Don't worry. First of all, don't worry. There's a way to walk through this, and there's a way to walk through to victory. And I'm like, okay, that's the only person I want to talk to, are people who talk like that.
Yes.
Because that's the road I want to be on. And so, wow. So here we are, and June. I am on 2-3 hormone medications now, which have turned me into an amazing person. Angela at the hardware store, it's where you get your nails, hammers, hangers, bug spray, bolts, washers. Get your keys made there.
Yes.
Well, I get counseling from Angela about hot flashes. and thank God for Angela. Of course, I have friends that have done that before, but it's different, It's different when you hear somebody talking about it. It's like a hot flash. What is that? But I now know what that's like, because the treatments and the phase I'm in now, has turned that fireplace right up to high, because it does things to your body that men aren't supposed to have done to their body. So I said, Angela, Angela, I had no idea. We've talked about lots of things, but I had no idea that she was going through that phase in her life. And I said, Angela, she said, how you doing? I said, the side effects are just crazy. Hot flashes. She said, hot flashes? She said, oh yeah, I got them too. I was like, what do you do? Well, you get fans. You get fans. And you throw the sheets back. and I was like, okay. So I go home, and of course I got a fan, and then the ceiling fan.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a new one, super powerful. It'll blow you out of bed. So,
good for you.
So I got that, and so all night long, I go to sleep, I wake up, I'm sweating, throw the covers back, fan's already running. That sensation lasts for a little while, and whatever happens. The dog is like, what is wrong with you? And he's a French bulldog, so they have a peculiar attitude, and they just stare at you like, what's wrong with you? And then they snort, and I'm like, I'm having a rough minute, buddy. Yes. And then if I get up, because then you got to go pee, because when you're dealing with prostate cancer and prostate, you got that going on. So you go running back and forth to the bathroom. You got these hot things going on. And then every now and then I'd stop in with Angela, and she says, how's it going? And I just assume she's talking about that. And I'm like, man, it was a rough one last night, and sometimes it's not so bad.
Yes.
And the fact that you and I are sitting here talking about this now is absolutely amazing, because never in my life did I imagine I would ever have a conversation like this with anyone on earth, and that I would have that experience. And I've tried to laugh about it. I've successfully laughed about it. And I'm grateful for that, because it's helped me deal with the heaviness of how this is. And I wanted us to talk and share our stories with each other. Yesterday we sat over at that coffee place, where were we? Anchor.
Anchor, yes.
Anchor's away.
That's right.
And when I came, you were already there. I was I think I was on time, even just maybe early, right?
Believe it or not, and this is, thank you for clearing this up. I'm accused often of being tardy. And dismissive of time commitments, but I'm actually very punctual. Don't mind if other people are late, but I'm punctual. So thank you, Carl, for
you were on time. I can validate that, because when I walked in, you were at the counter, and I said, hey, Greg, hey, Carl, and then you just walked away. But I saw you had your boat of coffee over there. And the nice girl said, I said, what do you want? I said, I just want black coffee, because that's one of the things that we're supposed to drink. And she said, do you want a large or regular? And I said, what's that? And she says, I said, what's that boat size? And she says, that's a large. I said, I'll have a regular. And it was really good coffee.
Yes, it was. They've served great coffee there.
But I soon would find out, for a 3-hour conversation, you need a large.
and Carl, I just for a second, because what you're doing today is deeply meaningful to me, and I want to commend you for having, because to me it's courage to speak about what someone's going through, and I think that there are a lot of scared people out there that are going through what you and I have gone through, or going through, and to have someone that has a literal microphone and has a platform to share, I think you're going to be able to help a lot of people, and for you to have the courage to speak about this in a public forum is just deeply admirable.
Well, I thank you for that. I can tell you the scared part, that was me. In November, December, January, February, March, and July. So I mean, we're getting there. That's why the laughter came, because I found myself going through this, Greg, and because I've struggled with this, because I do have a lot of people that watch Life in the Carolinas, and we have our Life in Wilkes project, and I didn't want to be the person that people would think of, oh, he's got cancer and he's dying. That's not what I wanted to do. But as I've learned more, and I've gotten deeper into, the types of treatments that work, and talking to survivors that have lived 20 years, after what was supposed to be the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that if Jack can do that, I can do that.
Yes.
And thank goodness he wasn't somebody that did 100 push-ups a day. But he did walk. He did walk and do things. I've that's all part of my life. I have. Because I'm on advanced hormone treatments now, which cause all the side effects.
Sure.
And one of them is that you lose your muscles really fast if you're not doing resistant weights. And I didn't. I was like, surely, I'm moving enough. Yeah. But within the first month, the first 2 weeks, I was making my list of my plans, and I was doing some walking, but I noticed my muscles in my legs, they were physically smaller.
Right.
And I'm like, holy cow. And so I immediately began doing some resistance work and doing outdoor activities, working on a trail, doing things that would push my body. And I just wasn't happy if I wasn't sweating, which with the hot flashes, sometimes I was like, am I working out, or am I just expressing this? What the heck? My brother told me about this guitar player at his church.
Okay.
And he was going through similar things, the hormone treatments. He'd be sitting there playing the guitar. The next thing you know, he's soaked. He's just exhausted. He said, "Man, I don't like that part of it." But he would just strum away. So I visited his church one time, and I said, "Is that him? Is that him?" He said, "No, that's it." And then finally he said, "Oh, that's him." I said,
right.
"Oh," and I kept looking if he was sweating. Because it was one of those things that you're just looking for that commonality.
Yeah.
That commonality with people. Oh my gosh. Did you do that? Did you do the hormone treatments too?
So, yeah, and I'm not sure, do you want me to speak about that, or would you like me to start with my story? I'm not sure how you would like me to.
I would like, let's do it the funniest way you can do it.
Okay.
Just start.
Okay.
No, let's start from the beginning, because I shared mine.
Okay.
My journey started in November. I have labored over, do I share this? Do I not share this? And then how do I do it, and what's the reason for doing it?
Yes.
And the only thing in my mind, if I do it, I want to inform and inspire individuals like myself, and like the stubborn me's, who maybe start treatment and want to stop, and because it is inconvenient.
That's a great way to do it. It is a dadgum inconvenience to get cancer.
I can't tell you how many times, I thought I was coming to the studio, and I'd call Tim. I said, "Tim, it's a bad day." Right. And there was I'll tell you this, and then you'll kick off. Sure. At Atrium in Winston, that's where I'm having treatments, and they have when you're indoctrinated, they give you a big packet.
Welcome to campus.
Yeah, that's right. And then you got all of these things, Well, I read it. I think most people don't read it, so I was reading everything, Same
here.
I read it, and then come across the page, and it says, "Do you need support?" And it was for the patient, the caregivers, the spouses,
right.
For everybody. And so I read the part, if you're a patient, if you have cancer and you need to talk to someone about what you're experiencing and going through. So I read that, and then I reread it again. Then I picked up the phone and dialed that number.
Right.
Well, as it turns out, I got a lady on the phone, and she just happened to be the head of that program.
Wow.
And so she told me about it, and I said, so what do you do? She said, well, we just talk, So she's like I don't know if she's a psychologist, or I think they have it under social worker support, family support type thing. And I was reading everything, and I said, well, I need to know everything that's on that page because it was all new, And I mean, I have wonderful friends, many who have gone through this, some who are going through it now, who've been incredibly supportive. But you don't want to call your friends and ask them absolutely everything, which they probably told you. You just got lost in the ether,
Yeah.
So she's telling me her story, or telling me about it, and I said, so what's your story? Being an interviewer, I was there it was. I said, what's your story?
Great, Carl.
And she said, I'm a cancer survivor. I said, really? What type of cancer? She told me. I said, how long was that? And she told me. And I was like, okay. I said, I think I'd like to schedule sessions. And she says, let me look and see who's available. I said, no, you. I want you. I want you.
Good for you.
Because she had gone through this, and I want to talk to someone who has that experience, because I'm getting ready to go through this. Now, hers was another type of cancer, but it's still the journey, and I wanted to know. And so we talk every 2 or 3 weeks on a Zoom call, and that is so beneficial because it's kind of like you get an inside hookup on your own inside, right? Which is really important, because there were moments that I was physically not feeling well, but I was also mentally just trying to figure it out and how to balance. And she told me this, Greg. She said, Carl, we was talking about something. I had a really rough day, and because I had something I wanted to do, and I didn't have the capacity, and I just wore out. And she said, Here's the. I don't think she said here's the secret, but here's the way it worked for me, and I think this will work for you too. She said you have to be able to give yourself a little grace, because there are going to be moments you can't do what you want to do, and you just got to sit down and recuperate, and just be okay with that.
Right.
And don't let it be to the point you're not even forgiving yourself. You just are receiving that grace.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to wrap my head around that, but I did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was powerful for me.
Well, you touch on something that I think is deeply important when and hopefully none of the people listening will have to go through this, but if you do, you touched on when you were speaking to her, and she was saying, who do you want? And you said you.
Yeah.
It's extremely important when you're dealing with something so important and traumatic that you do have people that are going to fight with you, that are going to be there with you. And some people are like, I think I'm very special. I'm very lucky to have the support and the network that I had, because I can go do that. And I think you too have that ability. And what cancer did for me, Carl, is it opened my eyes to the people that don't get the kind of treatment that you and I get. And it makes me want to do things like this, because anything that I can do to help people deal with, a very scary thing. And like you said, laughter. It's you either laugh or cry, and sometimes both.
Or want to, and you can't.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the real frustrating one.
Yes, and so I just want to commend you that you touched on something that I think is very important to me is get the people on your team that are going to fight with you.
Right.
And
it's important too, for me it was anyway, to have that team not just be. I did not want this to just be the only thing I talked about with family.
Yes.
I did not want, every time I get together with my friends who have been very supportive, gone through the journey, I want, when Steve calls, says you want to go, I found a funny show for us to go see. Great. I don't want the drive there or while we're there to be, well, how your treatment's going. I don't want it to be that way. I want to go and laugh freely without giving a weather report of is it hot today or not.
And guess what? What you're doing right there is to me, you're communicating what you need. And I think that's beautiful because, a lot of people don't do that. They don't say, because like for you, I think you and I were joking about it yesterday. People approach me with like, and they whisper, how you doing? Are you healthy? And I'm like, why are you whispering? Is that gonna somehow change the outcome? Right. But if you're able to share, hey, it's okay to ask me, right. Hey, well, I'm doing great. There's no need to dwell on it. And I think that's an important buffer for you to create around yourself. I do.
I looked at it as a way to move forward. Okay. I had to come up with a way or discover a way or learn a way of walking through my days and having the best days that I can and getting the most out of them. So if I sit down with Tim and I say, hey, we've got Greg coming in and this is the subject matter, and in this case, he didn't pull up a lot of graphics, but in many cases, he'd have things pulled together and done a bit of research as well because he's got to do it all in post-production, right? But this, wow, it's just something you just never, ever are prepared for. No. And I'm just trying to, I'm trying to do it in a way that gives me peace, people around me don't feel nervous, and we can have fun along the journey.
I think that's great. And by the way, and I'll touch on this because you and I talked about this yesterday, is who do you want on that journey with you? It's, and some people, I think, I've talked about, some people like to keep these things very close to their vest. I'm a big believer in collective consciousness. And I believe, whether someone calls that prayer or meditation, as I've told you, I have friends across the religious spectrum. I have friends who are Christian, evangelical Christians that lay on hands, speaking tongues to me, for positive things. Then I have Muslim friends, I have Hindu friends, I have Buddhist friends, I have Jewish friends. All of them, in their own way, prayed or meditated on me, and I accepted all of that because, to me, it's not a fight about me. I need everybody's help.
Is it true, do you buy into the notion that when one person in the world is hurting because of cancer, there's a little tiny ripple that affects all mankind?
Yes.
And when that pain, that angst, that all the things that go with that, when we try to, because obviously the numbers are a lot larger than one. Yeah. But if we have a lot of positive things going on and people moving forward, I think we feel that as well.
Yes.
I think that's all, every good thing makes all of us better. Every negative thing can have a negative impact as well.
So not only do I believe that, I believe that negativity in its own way can cause cancer. I believe that negativity, whether you're negative to yourself, which I used to be. I used to be a very negative person for reasons that I didn't understand at the time. I'm since evolved past that. But for a long time, I was negative, had a lot of self-hate. And I wasn't good to myself in the way that I ate or exercised. And I wanted to touch on something that you've actually mentioned is pre-diagnosis on both of us. You and I both also shared a similar journey with another thing that, to me, actually prepared us for this journey. And I won't speak to your thing, but mine was, I was morbidly obese. I weighed close to 340, 350. Changed my eating habits back in 2012 or 13 to become a vegan, specifically for health reasons. I lost 140 pounds.
Wow, congratulations.
And so I guess that leads us up to 2020. I was healthier than I had been in my life.
Feeling good.
Feeling great.
Great energy.
Great energy. But you also touched on something yesterday that I'd like to discuss if we have time. Is because you asked me this: did you feel unwell, Greg, before your diagnosis? And that is a question I've really thought about, Carl, because in the time before my diagnosis, I would have told you, no, I was fine. But I think there's a certain delusion. I think we know when something's going on in our body. Whether or not I knew that it was cancer or not, it was like I had severe pain in my leg. It wasn't arthritis related. It was a weird feeling that I never felt. Should have gotten that checked. Didn't. My frequency of urination. I would tell myself I've got a good flow. I'm going to get. That was also a lie. I just was in my early 50s, so I was like, I shouldn't be having this problem, but I didn't get it checked out. So and like I told you, I had severe chills, not on a regular basis, but when it happened, it was almost paralyzing. And I would actually have to take a hot shower to get calm. So in 2020, in August of that year is when I had my annual physical. And like I said, all of my numbers were great. My doctor was very happy with me, my local doctor. And she said, we got one little thing that I need to get checked. And she goes, it's your PSA level. And at the time, at my age, the cutoff on PSA was a 4.0. Right. And as you age, that number grows a little larger, not exponentially larger, but it does grow larger. But she says yours went to a 4.1, Greg, and let's just go to a urologist, get checked out. So the way she told me, and she also said, hey, you don't die. Nobody dies of prostate cancer. That's untrue. Right. But so when I went to the urologist, Gia and I, my wife's name is Gia, who through this whole journey, there's not been one person stronger than her. I wouldn't have been able to make it without her. So we get down to our urologist in Statesville. He does a physical exam on me, does a physical examination of my prostate, and he didn't feel anything. And he said, I'm not feeling anything. He goes, and you're not exhibiting any other symptoms, but let's just do a biopsy just to make sure. So we scheduled the biopsy, got that done. He did 14 core samples of my prostate. He said, okay, we'll have your results in a week. So G and I drove back down to Statesville the week later, and we're sitting in the examination room, and he opens the door. And as soon as he opens that door, I know. His face is just as
countenance.
White. Yeah. And he just looks at me and said, Greg, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, you've got very aggressive, advanced prostate cancer. He said, every one of your core samples came back positive for cancer. And he said, now I'm concerned that it may have moved into your bones and other parts of your body. So we need to do a bone scan and a complete MRI and CT scan on you. So as you know, that was a gut punch that I would have never thought in my life I would be having a cancer conference. I really just didn't think I'd ever get it. So that day, G and I rode home, and then it was the next morning, Carl, that I had my epiphany. So I'm not a depressed person. I have friends and family that suffer from it, and I can see the pain that they suffered, but I've never experienced it. Except for the morning after I was diagnosed, and I'm laying in bed, and I walk every day. I walk for health benefits and for meditation. And this particular morning, I wake up, and there's a voice or a feeling that comes over me and says, don't get up. Don't get out of bed. You've been dealt a bad hand. Just sleep. Just sleep. And that scared me more than probably anything's ever scared me in my life, that voice or that feeling. And I won't say exactly what I said, but I did say, F you. And I actually verbalized that, and I said, I'm going to get up and walk. I said, I'm not going to stop walking until I figure out how to beat this. So I walked for an hour and a half before my mind got cleared. But it did clear. And when it cleared, this other feeling or voice came over me that said, you're going to beat this with love, laughter, and positive energy.
Wow. And
in that, and family. And I will tell you, I'm a very lucky man in that I have the family that I have. I have an incredible brother. I have an incredible sister, incredible wife, nieces and nephews, cousins that all jumped on this bandwagon with me without hesitation. And one other thing I'll speak to, because you and I talked about this, is I always wanted to, when I had cousins before me that got cancer, 2 female cousins. And of course, when they got cancer, I sent them a text. Hey, thoughts and prayers, I'm with you if you need me, call me. And I felt good about myself. It's like, okay, I participated. When I got cancer, they were the first 2 to call me, and it wasn't a thoughts and prayers. It was like, we are going to walk on this journey with you. And
there is a difference. There is a difference.
It's huge. And that's what made me in that moment realize that, and it's a lot of me, I'm guilty of it, is unless it's impacting us personally, we may send a nice affirmation or something, but it's out of sight, out of mind. When it affects you personally, it changes everything. And so what I would like for people to do is get to a place in their lives where they don't have to have something like this happen to them before they start caring. And so that was a profound thing for me.
Was that a pivotal point in your life? Had you ever done that before to the degree in which you did it then, of where you realized you had all these people around you, and then have this very positive thing with people saying, we're with you, and you knew that it was real? Had you ever had anything like that before to that degree?
Never in that capacity. I've always had people that have believed in me. My mom, well, my whole family, my dad, mom, brother, and sister, never gave up on me, ever. And I'm sitting here because of that love. It's unequivocal that love brought me here. And so I'm a little remiss that I didn't come to that conclusion, that understanding that, hey, we need to care for each other regardless of if it's directly impacting us.
You mean earlier in life?
Yes, sir. Yeah. But I also, I think my journey's taught me that I don't dwell on it anymore. I try to improve. I don't sit there and harbor and think about the past and what I did wrong anymore. It's now, what can I do to change humanity? What can I do to bring us closer? And so right after I was diagnosed, I called a cousin in Jacksonville, Florida, who had a friend that died of a glioma of the brain, and he has a charity event every year for him at MD Anderson, and I called him and he said, I will get you an appointment immediately. So that's the first thing is I was able to get incredible care immediately. The next thing, I called my siblings, and right there with me, but then. My brother said something to me, Carl, that once again, I'm so grateful and humble that I have this kind of access. My brother said, I will never buy you a yacht, Greg. It's not going to happen.
Had you been asking for one?
Yeah, I have. I've been asking for a lot of things. The only thing I get to do is pay extra for tips because of my last name. Right. So anyway, guys, I will never buy you a yacht, but my brother's going to live. And he only asked me, he goes, are you willing to go wherever you need to go to get help? I said, yes. He goes, then I don't want you worrying about money, work, your health care, anything. He goes, I just want you to focus on getting healed. And probably one of the best gifts if not the best gift I've ever been given, outside of getting cancer, which I told you yesterday is the best gift I've ever gotten.
And isn't that a strange thing to say? I mean, when people listening men who may going through exactly what we're going through, or they're listening, they're like, wow, I don't want to, that sounds pretty rough, and we want to encourage them to get their PSAs checked. I mean, every year, faithfully.
Yes.
I think there was a time in the past, I don't remember the dates of it, but there was a time when PSAs were very popular, then it kind of softened and it wasn't being pushed as much. But now we have more prostate cancers, the number 1, number 2 killer of men in America. And for men of color, it's 50% greater. So
Don't
it
doubt
is
that.
Such a big deal when you experience it.
Yes.
So you don't want to experience it, right? But let's talk about that journey.
So Gia and I drove down to Jacksonville, and this is the first time that I've ever witnessed. I mean, my mom went through breast cancer, and my grandmother did, my aunt, but And by the way, those are closely related, as you and I talked about. And in fact, if you have females in your family that have breast cancer, you could be at a higher likelihood of prostate cancer as a man. I don't know if you knew that.
Maybe I read something about it, but the thing I did learn about is for men, if you have siblings, so if your brother,
yes,
your father, or your uncles,
yes,
right, have had cancer, prostate cancer,
right,
then your chances are a lot greater that you would have it as well.
Yes. That, and as you alluded to, more people are getting prostate cancer, and it's also happening to younger men.
That's right.
So now, I highly recommend to men, regardless of your age, check your family history. The one thing that I forced my brother to do when I was diagnosed is like, hey, I have advanced prostate cancer. And you need to get checked.
Right.
And said, and tell your urologist, don't listen to your PSA number.
How long did it take him?
He was done. He did it in a week.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because I didn't want to scare him, Carl, but I just wanted him to know, hey, this is a real thing. Could be a real thing.
So it's a family deal now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we got to Florida, we met with a surgeon, a radiation oncologist, and a medical oncologist. And at least in my world,
and this is at Anderson.
Yeah, this is MD Anderson, and it's not MD Anderson in Houston. It's their satellite office in Florida. But in my world down there, medical oncologist was chemo. I was a chemo doctor. Then my radiation oncologist was for radiation, and then the surgeon. So they were going over their options with me, and I think I shared with you yesterday because it's
unknown caller.
It's hard for me. It was hard for me to admit this because it's such a cancer alone is scary. But when you're faced with a stage 3 or 4, that's even extra. It's even worse. And they never told me my staging. I don't know why they did or didn't, but it was. I guess in a way I was glad at first. So they're going through my options, and they said, one option is surgery and hormone therapy. Another option is hormone therapy and radiation, and a third option is hormone therapy, radiation, and chemo. Right. So they wanted G and I to talk about it, and they told me, hey, surgery, in their minds, that's when you're removing the cancer from your body. And so G and I talked about 5 minutes. They did tell me, there's a high likelihood, almost 100%, not always, but very high percentage that I would lose my ability in my nether regions, and I would become impotent. And, being in my 50s, that was something that, I not only cared about me, but about my wife. And we talked about 5 minutes, and my wife looked at me and said, there's much, much more to our marriage and our love and our life together than that thing. And I would tell you what else she said, but I think this is a family show, but it was very funny at this stage. And so we decided that we were going to have surgery. So this is the first part, Carl, that I also believe in is ego of your doctors and your medical team. And so we got the plan, and we said we're going to do surgery. Well, we drove back home from Florida to North Carolina, and about 3 days later, my surgeon called me, and his name was Dr. Milquist, and a man in his 40s. He said, Greg, I love surgery. He said, I'm good at it. He said, but I'm just in my 40s, and he goes, I've been looking at your scans again, and he goes, it's too difficult for me. And he goes, I'm afraid I would put you in a colostomy bag for the rest of your life, and I just don't want to take that risk. And I greatly appreciated that. And he said, so we can look at these chemo options and radiation and stuff. And I said, can I get a second opinion? And he absolutely encouraged me to do it. And so I have another cousin that was able to get me into Sloan Kettering in New York. And up there's a doctor named Dr. Eastham, and one of the best prostate cancer surgeons on the planet. And he met with us, and he looked at my scans, and he said, look, this was now October. I'd already started my hormone treatment. As you were talking about, Carl, hormone treatment for men with prostate cancer, especially those that respond to hormone therapy, and I'm so grateful that you do, is hormone therapy will stop the cancer immediately.
Right.
It stops
it from growing.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal. And it does, I don't know about you, it gave me a sense of relief, like, hey, I know that it's stopped right now. And
that's right. It's not getting bigger.
No, and I was okay with that.
It doesn't get rid of it, but it's just not getting bigger.
No, and to let you know, my prostate cancer had spread inside my prostate bed, but it was in my seminal vesicles. It was all around the prostate, but it hadn't jumped out.
Okay.
It hadn't jumped out of that bed, and they were very hopeful for that. So Dr. Eastham said, hey, come up, we'll do surgery on you in January of 2021, and then go live your life. And I said, well, what about chemo? And he goes, what? And it was almost an afterthought to him. He goes, we don't do chemo up here. And so I was like, okay then. So Gia and I went up to New York, and this was during COVID, so she couldn't be with me when I went into the surgical center. But I went to the surgical center, and they did I think it was an 8 or 9 hour surgery with a Da Vinci machine. Looked like a spaceship.
Yep.
And when I walked into that room, Carl, I said, hey, everybody, I'm Greg Galifianakis. I said, you're here to save my life. I said, let's get on, let's get with it. And they were looking, who is this hick?
They would soon find out. Right?
So after surgery, I'm laying in bed, and the PA, I wake up and there's a PA holding my hand, and the first words out of my mouth were, do I have a colostomy bag? And she goes,
sure.
Well, no, you don't. And I went, excellent. And then I fell back asleep. So then they were telling me all the things that were going to happen to me because of my surgery. I was going to have a big black ring around my waist for weeks. I wouldn't be able to do certain bodily functions for a while. I did have an internal catheter. But the healing process was very good. And after surgery, my surgeon came in and said, Greg, I aged about 3 years doing your surgery yesterday. Wow. And I went, Good. I said, I know that your heart was in it. And he said, we think we got everything. He goes, there's a small margin, positive margin at your colon. He said, if it comes back, we'll just radiate it and we'll be done. He never showed concern. He never said, he never gave me any mortality stuff. And so I was like, great. And like I think I shared with you yesterday, even though my surgery went well, I didn't have any after effects really. I did feel like it wasn't done. And I felt like, it wasn't an existential threat to me. It was more like, hey, they've still got a little cleanup to do, but then you'll be done. So
were you at peace with that?
Yes. Okay. It was almost as if it wasn't that I was hoping for it to come back, but it was almost like it needed to come back so I could finish.
So you can get rid of it all.
Yes. And so I think there was an expectation, and it wasn't a manifestation. It was more just of a kind of giving myself over.
And it wasn't, so if I understand the way it works, so it wasn't necessarily that it came back. It's just that little speck that was there got just a little bit larger.
Yes.
Enough because your surgeon said, hey, there's probably something over here.
Yes.
But we'll take care of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I think that's the big thing that I learned during this process, or how incredibly small these cells are. And, it's not like there's one, there's like thousands and hundreds of thousands of them. And if, like without the hormone treatments, then they just go crazy. They go everywhere. Yeah. And if it's advanced, they go quickly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was that was something I learned about. And the medical oncologist, he said, well, we're going to do hormone treatments, but we're going to be very aggressive.
Yes.
You're getting the big doses, and you're going to have multiples. But I'd done some research just reading research papers and talking to people who had gone through this and just doing a lot of reading and watching from doctors that specialize in this area. And I developed a sense of peace. I'm like, okay, the side effects are not particularly enjoyable or enjoyable at all, but I know that means that it's working.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate and blessed to be one of those people that the first set of blood work, because you go every month or so to have your blood work done, and the first month after I started, and I'm there, they do the blood work, and she says, and I says, what's And she says, well, your numbers, your PSA has come really far down. Your the hormones are working. You are responding well to the treatment. And I'm like, keep the hot flashes coming. I'm like, that's so when I have a hot flash, what I think about in my mind now is two things. I giggle because of things that Angela says, but then I also imagine these little fighters are in there and I'm sweating because they're beating up the cancer. Right? When you watch a wrestling match or a boxers,
yes.
They're sweating.
Yes.
They're sweating. So in my mind, delusional or not, that's what I choose to believe, that I'm sweating because they're fighting for me and they're keeping the enemy away.
Yeah.
So we got to sweat, right?
Absolutely.
You don't walk on the beach and expect not to sweat.
No. And you mentioned something that I forgot to mention. So before my surgery in January of 2021, they gave me my hormone treatment in October. So I actually got a hormone treatment started in MD Anderson.
Did you have the injection?
Yes, I had the injection. Yeah, and immediately, and they told me, they said, you could exhibit hot flashes, and I started giggling.
Giggling?
Because I was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, because this hormone, you will be getting hot flashes like women who are in menopause. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get to experience what a woman gets to experience. Like, this is rare. This is rare. And I was like, because
right.
you always, to me, I'm interested in what, I think it's important that we know what the sexes have to go through.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I don't know a lot of men that understand exactly what women have to go through.
What'd your wife say about your epiphany?
Well, I did exactly. She goes, "Welcome to my world." That's
right.
what she said. And there was very little sympathy over
right.
it's like, okay, well, this is what we all go through, Greg.
Yeah. Get over it, right?
So immediately, the day after I got my first injection, I go downstairs to Gia. She's watching TV. And I was overcome with some kind of, it was a positive emotion,
right.
But I was overcome with, and I started crying in front of her. She goes, oh for God's, she goes, are you becoming a woman already? So I was like, well, I'm emotional anyway.
Right.
So anyway, I started doing that. And then my hot flashes, it felt like a fire coming from inside my body.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't external. It was internal. And the only thing that I can compare it to, Carl, that I shared with you yesterday, is in the movie. If any of you ever want to know what a woman goes through and by the way, I'm not speaking for women, this is my own feelings, is An American Werewolf in London. And it's the first it's the first time I'm not calling women werewolves, but what I'm saying is the time that he turns into the full force werewolf.
Right.
He's sitting in the flat in London reading a book.
Right.
And starts ripping his clothes off.
Right.
That's what a hot flash feels like to me.
Yeah.
It's like I got to get off everything.
Right.
And so she had to deal with that, and unfortunately, I didn't have a mentor in Angie at the time. Gia was not going through hot flashes at the time.
Okay.
So I was kind of on my own. Had to deal with this on my own.
You were out there on the prairie by
That's right. I was an explorer. I was a pioneer.
You were a wolf out there.
And I was telling all the nurses that I could that I belong to the sisterhood now.
Right.
And I got a lot of booze for that. They're like,
Right.
Hey, this
That's right.
is just one aspect.
That's right. Until you can birth a human.
Yeah, which by the way, so I learned through this whole process that men are inherently weaker than women is what I've learned. So it's so kudos to all the women in there, and thank you for giving me just a glimpse into what y'all deal with on a daily basis, and you still do this and are able to run families, companies, organizations. Kudos to y'all. But
I think you recovered from that, okay?
Thank you. So
insult and criticize and show gratitude.
Yeah. So after I got my surgery, most of 2021, my PSA level was well below 0.1.
Oh,
okay,
good.
And that is the number that you and I and anyone that's gone through this want is less than 0.1. But later that year, it started creeping up. And then by the end of 2021, it had actually February 2022, it had gone to a 0.2. And in the medical world, a 0.2 is defined as a recurrence. So then they had me go to Duke University because Duke has a scanner there called a PSMA PET scan. And what this is, and I have told people, thank goodness I'm a man, because there's so much research goes into male prostate cancer because it's a man thing. So I'm very grateful to that. But PSMA it's a radioactive formula that they inject into your blood, and it will pick up small prostate cancer cells. That's all it does. And it illuminates them. So it's like a Technicolor when you look at it on the scan. They did that for me, and they found one little spot, and it was exactly where the surgeon said it was.
So he knew. He
knew exactly where it was. And so I went up, and this kind of goes back, Carl, to you. Hey, I want you to do this.
Right.
So since I'd had my surgery at Sloan Kettering, it was only convenient to have my radiation treatment up at Sloan Kettering. So the surgeon handed me off, and I'll tell you, the radiation oncologist I got up there was horrible. His bedside manner was terrible. And I typically, if you're going to cure me of cancer, I can deal with a lot of stuff. But he just didn't seem to understand. I don't even know he knew that my prostate was gone because he gave me a physical exam, which there's no need for when you don't have a prostate. So as soon as I was done with that, I immediately called down to MD Anderson and spoke to my radiation oncologist down there, whose name is Dr. Mahmood. One of the best human beings that I've met, Carl. And I think I told you this yesterday. When I met with him the first time, he was the only one of my doctors that asked me about me and about my, hey, tell me about your life and your journey. And I told him about losing weight, and he stopped me and he said, "You're going to beat this just because of your attitude." He said, "Your positivity goes miles in this condition." And that struck me. And so that resonated with me. So I called him back and said, "Hey, I want you. I don't want this guy up at Sloan Kettering." And he looked at my scans and he said, "We can do this." And he said he never once wavered from, "We can cure you." He didn't say that, but that was alluding. And so G and I
was it telepathic?
Yeah, he didn't make me feel bad. Let's just say that.
Right.
There was nothing in his voice or anything. So
you read into it. Good shave.
I'm picking up any like you do. I mean, look, you got to find hope and happiness, man.
There you go.
So anyway, he got down there and he said, "Look, we got this. My cousin Joey." and his family had a condominium down there. 5 minutes from where I was getting my radiation treatments. They let us stay there for 8 weeks.
So how long was your radiation?
8 weeks.
So 8 weeks?
Yep. So
Wow.
that was started in August of 2022 and finished in late September 2022.
How did you do with radiation, that process? Because some folks have, it's not an issue. For other people, there are side effects and frustrations.
So I don't know if this is a smart technique or not. I refuse to look at the side effects of radiation treatment. I wanted to just kind of fly solo and blind about it.
Okay.
Now, he did give me some warnings, which, as you know, I did not listen to, and it came back to literally bite me. But the first thing he said is, we are basically giving a sunburn to your parts of your body, to your colon area where the cancer is. He said, so you have to make sure that you don't eat spicy foods. Your stomach's going to be angry with you for a while.
Right.
Also had to have a full bladder when I went in, because when you have a full bladder, it moves it out of the radiation beam. So very important. So my first day of treatment, I went in, and I was. And it only takes 5 minutes. I didn't know what to expect, but when you're waiting, they take me, at least at MD Anderson, they take you into a locker room where you change out of your clothes into a gown or whatever. And this is where I started seeing true warriors. And I'd never, up until that point, I hadn't been around a lot of cancer patients because, when I was up at Sloan Kettering, it was still COVID. Didn't really interact with any other patients. Here, I was in the mix. I saw people coming from chemo treatments and then going to get radiation. I just the fortitude, the intestinal fortitude they had to do this was just inspiring to me. But I also noticed, Carl, a lot of sadness, because it's heavy, and you feel that heaviness. So I made a commitment that I was going to bring smiles while I was there. I was like, while I'm here, I'm going to bring happiness. And so I started playing music when I would go to my treatments, and I would dance to the treatment room. And
did you have a theme dance on?
Each day was a different disco. I like disco. I'm terrible at it. But I danced every day, and within 2 or 3 weeks...
You had a reputation.
I had a reputation, and I had a bunch of nurses and a couple of doctors following me into the treatment. So and
were they trying to restrain you or just celebrating with it?
Probably a little bit of both. Like I said, most people don't know how to handle me, so they just usually let me go. But one thing that I did is I would exercise after treatment. I would take my walking clothes. And after I called it my zap. So after I got my zap, I would put on my walking clothes and I'd walk around Jacksonville for 45 minutes. About 2 weeks into my treatment, my radiation oncologist said, "Hey, talk to me. How's treatment going for you?" And I was like, he goes, "You get tired?" I was like, "Well, I do get a little tired sometimes after I exercise." He goes, "What?" And I was like, he goes, "When do you exercise?" I said, "Right after my treatment." And he just stared at me and he went, "People don't do that, Greg. People are very tired after." I said, "Well, you didn't tell me that." Yeah. So it actually helped me, I think.
Right.
It helped. Moving really did. And since he didn't tell me that, because there may have been a block. Had he said something to me, that may have penetrated my brain and I would have gone, I need to get home and rest. Right. But since I didn't know that, I didn't.
And did you continue to?
Every day.
So even after he said, "Hey, everybody doesn't do that," you kept doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then one day he saw me, so we, he had his, so when I was inside the MD Anderson, everybody wore masks. Outside, he didn't have a mask. I didn't know what the man looked like outside of his mask because I hadn't seen him without his mask. Well, one day I'm walking into treatment and I hear of this voice go, "Greg," and I look over and I see this guy. He's like, it's Omar. I was like, "What?" And he goes, "I just want you to know, I was watching you walk He goes, you walk like a healthy man.
Wow.
He goes, you do not walk. He goes, I notice people's walks, Greg, especially people going through cancer treatment. He goes, you're not walking like someone going through cancer treatment. And that, of course, pumped me up.
So from that moment on, were you inspired to even do more?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
You haven't. In fact, this is I had a client of mine in Dallas, Texas, call me and say, hey, can you do a training for us down in Dallas? And I was like, well, I'm going through radiation treatment right now. Let me check. So I went to my radiation oncologist and said, hey, could I get my radiation treatment at 7 a.m, fly to Dallas from Jacksonville, do my training, and then the next day fly back to do my afternoon treatment? He goes, you know you have cancer and you're going through radiation treatment. I said, yes, but my question is, can I do it?
Right.
And he goes,
did you? Did you do it?
I did. So, during radiation treatment, and I didn't miss one.
So what was the training? Were you up and active, and moving and inspiring?
Yes.
And...
Well, I don't know if I was inspiring, but I was up and moving, and it was actually funny because when you're sitting there going, I can't believe that I have this.
Right.
I'm going through radiation treatment, but I'm up here teaching. It was funny more than anything else. And then. So the one thing that Dr. Mahmood did for me, Carl, and you've mentioned this, is he allowed me to research. He allowed me to look at things that could help me on my journey while I was going through radiation treatment, because I had heard there were supplements and things that can help with radioactive. It can negate some of the negative things.
Yeah, right.
The first thing I found was a supplement called genistein. And I told you about this yesterday. I found out that genistein can help women in menopause with their hot flashes. So I reached out to Dr. Mahmood and I said,
you immediately related to that.
What? I was like, well, okay, they're speaking to me now. So I called Mahmood and I said, hey, can I take this? And he goes, why do you want to take it? I said, helps with hot flashes. And he goes, you're not a woman. I said, well, says you. So he said, yeah, take it. I started taking it, and I will tell you, it helped me with my hot flashes, 100%. I mean, it lessened them to a degree that they weren't a problem for me.
Right. And that's a plant-based.
Yes, you can get it. Actually, the one that I take now comes from soy. There's another type where you can get it from another one, but they said the soy component is just as good. So that's the first thing I did. Then I found out that there's something called quercetin, which has a radiation component that can help negate some of the radiation stuff, but it's also an anti-cancer property to it. So I sent.
So you were discovering these things. You were letting your radio oncologist know what's going on, and then if he gives you a thumbs up, then you add it to your regime.
100%.
Right. But you did let him know.
So yes, very important, because radiation, anything you're doing, hormone treatment, radiation, chemo. Supplements and even natural occurring chemicals can cause issues with that if you're not careful.
Right.
So I do recommend, and by the way, the research that I did, because I think we're all guilty of seeing something on Instagram or Facebook or something, and we're like, oh, okay, this is gonna cure me. I don't stop there. So I don't stop at Facebook and Instagram. If I find something I think is interesting, I will go research at like Johns Hopkins or Harvard or in the past NIH, National Institutes of Health. And when I see enough data from those reputable research facilities, that's when I'll reach out to my doctor and say, hey, can I take this?
Right. And this has been your personal journey, like I have gone through a personal journey, and I let my oncologist know about whatever,
Yes.
I found this supplement, or I already had things in my cabinet, that I take for whatever, and here's the list, and I want to keep taking those, and then I would let him know. Because I think that's really important, because when people see this show or other shows and where we're talking about cancer and treatments and how to get through this, I think it's really important we all know we're on our own journey, and we should not take things just because someone said to take it. We need to do the research, but I think it's important, extremely important, to have the team on board. It's a team project. They're the oncologists. They need to be part of this. No surprises that way.
No.
So we're not recommending or endorsing any type of treatments other than a nice pepper.
There you go. Or sprouts.
Or sprout in case they make you sneeze too much. But I think that's really important. But kudos to you. You know, I do the same thing. You know, I've got some things that were already in my cabinet, and I want to help with inflammation, but I'd taken it for years. But I talked to the oncologist, said, look, these are some things that I'm doing. Are these okay? Sure, Carl. And anything that I might get a notion to try that I hear about, because I don't think there's a day, and I don't know how it was for you, or maybe still is, but I don't think there's a day that passes that I'm not trying to learn more about this thing and how to combat it.
Oh, I think it's a lifelong learning. You know, I think for the rest of my life, and I hope it's a very long life, just like with you, is finding ways that can prevent this from coming back. And I have found that natural foods are very powerful.
Let's talk about foods for a little bit, because we've talked about the more gruesome parts of it. We talked about the happy part. You know, laughter doeth good like a medicine. That's a thing, right?
Yes, it is. It's the best.
It's just the mere notion of it gets you going. So I feel exactly the same way. You know, we put that plant beside you there as an homage to your sweet brother.
And it's appreciated.
So let's. So this is from my kitchen, things that I have done. I started in November. Once I got this diagnosis, I don't know. I don't remember if I was just completely numb for a week or a month, but if it wasn't a month, I was partially numb,
right.
You know, because you're just trying to figure it all out. And literally in making plans, you know, and I was looking at things. I said, wait a minute, can I get something else, or do I need to get rid of what I got? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing. And
Sure.
I've talked to a lot of men who feel they share their story, and it's been the exact same thing. But diet for me has done a couple of things. Once I learned about the treatments and the side effects and how to combat those side effects, I said, okay, what can I do every single day to be part of getting rid of this thing?
Right.
How do we put our armor on and just go out there and kick butt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the power of food became something that I looked at, and there's absolutely nothing in this type of a diet. I don't even call it a diet. It's just my food.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, who can say, well, that's a pepper diet? Well, that's just part of what I eat. I eat lots of great things. I love hummus. I make my own hummus now. Why? Well, I was out of hummus one day, and I was like, I gotta go get some hummus. And I went to the YouTubes, and I said, how do you make hummus? And this little girl popped up, and she says, making hummus is so easy. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be smart. And I was like, there you go. There you go, lady. So she just... So then I kept looking, and I found, you know, all these different recipes from India and all over the place on hummus. But the key was, it's super simple. Yeah. And I just happened to have some chickpeas in the cabinet. I did not have all of the ingredients that the one fellow said, but he was gracious in saying, if you don't have all these, put other things in.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And the hummus was great. It literally took me minutes to make. And I haven't stopped making it and making even better hummus. You know, after we finished the show and wrap, I brought some with me, so you can give that a try.
I was hoping, because the pictures that you showed me yesterday, you look like a gourmet cook.
Well, and we'll share some of those pictures now. So, folks, I'm real serious about this way of eating, and I'm not going to allow cancer to take life away when I know there are things that I can do. And I'm not going to allow myself, my habits, my patterns of eating, great breads and pie and all these other things that we've grown up loving. I'm not going to allow my food lust to kill me. And that's what it would equate to. And I do believe that because I feel healthier. I feel more energetic. I feel mentally better when I'm eating the right things. So whether it's the food or the placebo effect, I don't care. It is working. But here's what I can tell you. I've lost 29 pounds since I've tried. And I haven't tried. I mean, I ate plenty of this stuff, I ate salmon and chicken. I mean, so I eat a lot of, you're a vegetarian now. So you don't eat any of the swimmy things, whatever.
Well, I will eat. So I do eat fish.
So you consider fish to be a vegetable. So. What?
I have to tell you, I used to say that I was a vegan, and I think that's probably the closest thing. But what I will allow, fish protein, especially because fish oil is extremely good for you.
Yes.
I will eat. I try to eat low mercury tuna twice a week,
right?
Or salmon or something like that, or sardines even.
Right. I have a hard time with sardines. I want to eat them. I want to love them, but they war against my palate so vigorously that I'm like, well, maybe if I take something for nausea first, then I could eat it, because I just don't like the way they smell or taste, because it's like they're like worms, and I just don't want that.
Here's the funny thing. I don't have. I used to be a very, very picky eater.
Right.
To me, ketchup was a vegetable. So, that's, I had a hard time eating raw vegetables. I had a hard time even eating cooked vegetables. My wife changed me on that, because it's very hard to be a vegan if you don't eat vegetables. So she got me eating a lot healthier. But I just had to force myself. I take mushrooms every day. I take a shiitake mushroom called AHCC. I take a reishi mushroom and a turkey tail mushroom in powder form. Now, it literally tastes like you're drinking dirt. So you mix it in with the... and I've actually...
there's a company that does it. It's called Mud Water. Mud Water. I ordered some.
Well, did you really?
I did.
What, did it taste like mud?
It was delightful mud.
Was it? Okay, good.
Well, after I put stuff in it. But I'll have a cup. I'll have a cup every now and then, because it is good, and there are medicinal benefits to those plant products, and it's well documented.
Yes.
So I think that's incredible. Going down this journey is a very personal journey. If I can say anything to men and families, support folks who are part of that support group for men who are going through prostate cancer or any type of cancer, or anyone, because when it comes to the food consumption and what it can do for our bodies, that's a male and female. It's just better for the whole family. But I'm not going to allow, and I hope, and I don't know how you dealt with this, but I just don't want to allow that possibility that if I go from this food to this food, which is all a wonderful part of creation, and eat this instead of that, I don't want to be the person that says, I can't do that. I can't give up, bread. Well, I don't do bread like I used to. Right. I'll have Ezekiel bread or a sprouted seed bread, which we can have. Yeah. So the idea that I would have such an addiction, and I did have a few to foods, and those are in my past now, because I want to live, and I don't want to be that example of someone who refuses to set something down that could be causing more harm to my body, and not empower my body to do the big battle that it has to do.
Well, you and I touched on this yesterday, because I feel the same way. I feel like anything I can do, I think the biggest thing, and you and I both have done this, is cutting out sugar.
Oh, that's the big one. Right.
You know, and luckily for me, like I said, you know, I think my weight problem that I had, and resolving that, because one of the things that I took away was sugar, processed sugar, and now. You know, even if I ate milk chocolate, it would be very sweet. It'd be too sweet for me.
You do dark chocolate?
I do dark chocolate. Right. I do an 85 or 90% dark chocolate, and I love it. And my palate has adapted to that. But I think, Carl, you touch on something that, you know, you and I are able to see tomorrow. We can see the future.
Now.
Now
I can.
Yes. Okay. No.
Last November I didn't. I couldn't.
Right.
But now I can because my head hadn't. It was just starting. You know. So for people that are, you know, this is just the beginning, or you know, you've done treatments and now you're having to go through another round of treatments. There can be discouragements there.
Yes.
It can be a really tough battle of what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. I have to admit, I have a confession. All right?
Oh.
I actually, within this time period, have had fried chicken. But not the whole box. Just one piece.
And guess what? So you talk. Here's the other truth. So here I have a confession, okay? I allow myself on the weekend. I like bagels. I've always love everything bagel. Now I can't eat bagels every day. It would be detrimental to me. But I do on occasion will allow myself a bagel on the weekend. I will allow myself chicken.
Do you do cheese?
No, I don't do real cheese. So I'll do because the vegan cheese these days.
That's good.
20 years ago, vegan cheese was horrible. It was like plastic.
Right.
Now it's extraordinary. But the thing you're talking about with food is these are things that you can, like these sprouts, you can grow on your countertop.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
super easy.
And so,
super easy.
And by the way, and it's funny because. When Richard and Angie told me that you and I share something in common, I have to tell you, one of the first things that I thought, I was like, I cannot wait to share with him the magic of the sprout.
Yes.
And so I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when you had already discovered it because I was like, God, that was my big point.
They're
with
like
Carl.
that's like Batman's cape.
Yeah, it is. And so literally though, y'all, broccoli sprouts, just look it up. Sulforaphane is the chemical component that's contained with it that, like as Carl said, just a little bit of this is equal to pounds and pounds of broccoli or radish or whatever. And it's extremely protective of an anti-cancer component. So I recommend, I eat this every day. I eat a smoothie every day with broccoli sprouts, blueberries, a quarter of a banana, and almond milk and peanut butter.
Yes. Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
Do you do the almond? The almond. I like almond butter.
Yes.
Do you do your peanut butter? Do you do the organic butter?
I absolutely do. No salt added.
You don't need it, right?
No,
it's fantastic.
And you know the point that you're talking about, seeing, you know, when you come up, the one thing I want men to get that are listening to this is be courageous to speak to somebody about what you're going through. I don't care who it is, but find someone, because you shouldn't carry this weight alone. You know, it was extremely scary to me when I got it. And, you know, you start off, Carl, you'll know this, when you're done with your treatment and you're clear, you start off every 3 months getting your blood work drawn. Then when you go over a threshold of 1 or 2 years, you get to move to every 6 months. That's where I am now.
You're 6 months now.
Well, I'm every 6 months now.
Okay,
so,
good.
And I just got a clear a couple of days ago, and my numbers in every category, non-cancer related, my triglycerides, all of my numbers were perfect. And the only thing I changed was the diet and the broccoli sprouts. So
fantastic.
It's stunning to me what eating healthy and like in this community, you may not be able to go out and buy the AHCC or the turkey tail because that can become expensive. But you can absolutely eat whole foods.
Right.
And you can grow your own whole foods or get them, I think, relatively cheaply.
And you can buy sprouts in the store,
Yes.
but my gosh, it is so cheap just to grow them yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not a massive task to do.
No. In fact, it's fun to me.
Yeah, it is. It is fun. It is fun. Fun with sprouts.
Yes.
Fun with sprouts. Greg, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed our time together. We spent 1 hour and 27 minutes and 57 seconds.
That went fast, Carl.
Can you believe that? For people listening, they're yawning and saying, "Oh, why can't we turn this off? How many times can they possibly laugh?" You know what? We're going to do?
What?
We're going to do, and we may get a few other people to join us, but we're going to create. It may only have one performance, maybe in this tiny studio, but we're going to have the laughter choir.
Oh. I'm in.
So I have no idea if the insane asylum will probably have a truck to carry us away at the end.
Yes.
But I think we have so many things to be grateful for. And men, women who are listening, whether you're going through this, your family members going through cancer, look, there's hope. I mean, there's absolute hope for two things. There's hope in the sense that if your family member, if you are not getting your PSAs done on a regular basis, at least annually, you need to do that. You have to take it seriously. I missed a couple of years because of other health reasons, and I got to tell you, I look back, I says, how could I have made a mistake like that? But I did, and when it was discovered, it was already in an advanced stage. And had I been disciplined to having it done every year, then that likely would not have happened. And I imagine your situation might be similar.
100%. In fact, the year before, my PSA had risen to baseline, but then they rechecked it, and they said we're not going to do the biopsy. That was a whole year before I got checked. So I should have pushed,
Yeah.
But when you get that initial thing, and then they tell you, okay, it's better, then you don't want to pull back that veil,
Right.
At least because of the fear.
But it's a simple test.
Yes.
It's a simple test. When you're having your triglycerides checked and other things, it's all part of that. It's so incredibly simple. Yeah. Food will not hurt you or punch you in the nose. It is not an enemy. So just making some subtle changes, which I think the overall benefits of that is fantastic.
Yes.
But when you hear that news, or if you've already heard that news, just know that there's hope.
Yes,
right?
there is.
There's hope.
Yes, there is.
There's a reason to believe, and a good tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
What is it your doctor said in New York? Go and live your life.
Yes.
I love that. Go and live your life. Greg, you funny duck.
Likewise, Carl. Thank you so much.
This has been wonderful.
It's been a joy to meet you. I really am. I'm honored to have met you, Carl.
Well, I feel exactly the same way. I like meeting me too. I mean, I'm sorry. I like meeting you.
Yeah.
I like making you laugh. That's easy. But it's easy. It's easy. Thank you. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
again. Thank you for sharing your story. And we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
Great.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.